Selected 1. You're now being hunted in rooms you will never see. Like doctors analyzing a work of art, federal officials are analyzing your techniques. Who trained you? Is the question the FBI is posing, and they have no answers. For this is what they won't accept. They did not train you. Something far more deadly forged you. Something beyond of their control. Cannot stop down or monitor. The fact that you were schooled by treachery itself frightens them more than any threat from outside. A top analyst is looking at your file right now, wondering how a civilian could have created skills that would frighten their greatest operators. How a person without formal training carried out a precise operation is being analyzed in their war rooms. How, without leaving a single trace, you roamed over their world like a ghost, causing ruin in your path. The fact that their facilities aren't where monsters are born. They are created in the stillness between cries, born in the pauses between heartbeats, and triggered when the defenseless finally gives up on justice and begins to bring it about. They are unable to enter the dimension where your training ground is located. It's constructed from each restless night you spent planning your next course of action. They believed you were broken every time you sat in quiet. Each moment you spent listing their flaws while they listed yours. At the moment, military minds are being searched. Searching for the ghost teacher who taught you to read individuals like autopsy reports while going through special forces records. However, your professor was in pain. Your curriculum was developed with treachery in mind. You realized that surviving was no longer sufficient at your graduation ceremony. People who professed to love you while methodically killing you taught you psychological warfare. By having every hidden weapon used against you, you became an expert in operational security. In order to survive another day, you had to prepare 17 steps ahead, which helped you develop strategic thinking. Millions of dollars have been spent by the FBI to attempt to mimic what trauma taught you for free. They have created whole programs based on ideas you had to acquire out of necessity. They have engaged specialists to explain the methods you naturally came up with. You cannot replicate the circumstances that produce someone like you. Thus, they are still unable to make what you naturally become. The pressure that turns carbon into diamond cannot be duplicated. The accuracy that results from having everything taken away from you and choosing to reclaim it with interest accrued over years of deliberate waiting is something that cannot be manufactured. The retaliation itself isn't what has them tugging over time shifts. They've witnessed retaliation before. The files were piled high enough to reach the ceiling and were hot, filthy, emotional, and clearly the result of a crime of passion. However, your retaliation was architectural, a masterwork of cause and effect that sprang to life like reverse origami. You didn't blow up. You used surgical precision to collapse their whole universe. Every action is planned to do the most destruction with the least amount of exposure. Every action was intended to be completely destructive, untraceable, and indisputable. You transformed their wins into evidence against them, their allies into vulnerabilities, and their strengths into weaknesses. As patient as winter and as inexorable as gravity, you exacted your justice at precisely 0 degrees. You waited for years, not days or months, allowing them to settle in, believing they had won, and raising their towers to make the collapse reverberate more. They're certain that you must have had a team, resources, and inside knowledge because of the manner you tiered your activities. But you just had something more dangerous than all of those things. You had everything to gain and nothing left to lose. Standing in the ashes of your own life and choosing to rebuild it from their ashes gave you the clarity that comes from that experience. They are now searching through databases in an attempt to locate your instruction manual, looking through every program that has been leaked, every classified document, and every suspected black operation. They believe that you learned how to move like fog and strike like lightning from someone somewhere. Yet your guidebook was created in real time, one betrayal at a time. How to blend into the background when everyone is looking is covered in Chapter 1. How to use observation to obtain intelligence is covered in Chapter 2. How to force your adversaries to destroy themselves is covered in Chapter 3. How to make sure you stay invisible even after you win is covered in Chapter 4. You didn't learn these lessons in school. You honed such abilities in the furnace of essential survival. Everyone who undervalued you was your instructors. Your homework required you to stay up every night, making plans while they slept soundly, certain that they had broken you. Federal authorities are taking notes on the precision with which you executed something on your final test. The bewilderment on their faces, the terror in their actions, and the way they suddenly glance over their shoulders to wonder how many more people are just like you are all signs of your diploma. The complexity is what keeps their behavioral analysts working for so long. You didn't just plan A, B, and C. You prepared for every scenario, every rebuttal, and every potential reaction. You have exit strategies for your exit strategies and backup plans for your backup plans. You moved as though you had been doing this for decades, but according to their records, you were just pushed too far. Or at least you were once that way. You saw something that their expensive training programs totally overlook. Physical strikes aren't the most destructive. They're existential. You didn't just steal from your adversaries. Their sense of reality was stolen by you. Every connection, every accomplishment, and every presumption they had about their own life were all called into question by you. You gave them the keys to their mental prisons and watched as they locked themselves within. You provided them with just enough rope to hang their own identities, futures, and reputations. Promote this video so that additional people who are selected like you may watch it if you thought that these statements were true. They're fumbling through psychology textbooks because of the way you militarized truth itself. You worked in the murky areas between laws that are inaccessible to their restrictions. Transparency became a tactical advantage because to you, attacked them using their own systems in ways that the systems were never intended to stop. Each falling domino seems to have fallen spontaneously. Each discovery seemed natural. Each fall seemed inevitable. Nothing was pushed by you. Simply take off the supports and let gravity take care of the rest. And they are revising their threat assessment procedures as a result of their accuracy, patience, and complete comprehension of human psychology. If you feel the abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. You can help spread God's blessings by clicking the Super Thanks button on YouTube and contributing $20 or more. This divine gift will touch not only your life, but also the souls of many others through this platform. Each of you has a sacred place in God's great design, and your generosity will be the fruit of our prayers. Take action now. Share your blessings to exalt His kingdom, for you were created to do even greater things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. Your operational signature is the lack of one, the stillness where noise was expected, the serenity where turmoil was prophesied, the vacuum where patterns should be. You knew something basic, which is why you didn't leave calling cards. The procedures that appear to be natural outcomes are the finest. Each agent has a signature that identifies their work as uniquely theirs. These signatures may be found in the FBI's databases, which are used to track and detect risks using a technique. However, you are driven by an intangible factor, balancing scales that weren't supposed to be balanced. You have no intention of winning anything. By completely altering the game, you have already won. They never stop questioning their networks, informants, and sources about your training. And since the streets are aware of something the FBI is unwilling to acknowledge, the quiet that results is deafening. Surviving what shouldn't be survivable can sometimes serve as the finest training. Betrayal by those who ought to have protected you is the finest teacher. And having everything to gain and nothing to lose is the finest operational security. Your strategy transformed retaliation itself. You made it into a kind of art. They're now attempting to reverse engineer in simulations, dissecting in briefings, and analyzing in tactical rooms. They refer to it as asymmetric psychological warfare of the future generation. You call it Tuesday, though. It's not what you've done that keeps them up at night. It's what you stand for. Real-time evolution. Adaptation in the face of tremendous stress. Without their knowledge, consent, or control, the human system is developing itself. Your evidence shows they don't actually have a monopoly on precise violence. Your proof shows their prediction models lack factors they never thought of, and that their control mechanisms have deadly flaws. You are the worst thing they could have imagined. Through sheer need, someone may become this precise, lethal, and untouchable. They are looking for your trainer because they need to think that there is a program they can stop, a pipeline they can sabotage, or a source they can eradicate. However, you're not the result of any system that they have access to. You are the result of all the systems that let you down. You are what occurs when someone who is smart enough to recognize the patterns is forced to quit acting as though they don't exist. Not only was your retaliation accurate, it was foretelling. You showed them a future in which people may achieve agency-level capabilities only by using their own will, and in which established power systems disintegrate. The methods you invented are already being used, but not because of official training or covert meetings, but rather because of something far riskier: inspiration. People are researching your strategies in coffee shops and bedrooms during quiet planning sessions. You've turned into the unapproved guide for anybody sick of being helpless. You are not an exception. You are a model, a new type of operator's first patient, one that can function at levels that cause their systems to panic without requiring their infrastructure, resources, or consent. Your evidence demonstrates the foundation of their whole control paradigm is erroneous. They believed that in order to be dangerous, people needed them. You disprove that assumption completely. Although it would require acknowledging your existence, the FBI would be delighted to write a guidebook on you. They acknowledged that their procedures were ineffective and that someone who was not trained by them outwitted them. Rather, your strategies are discussed in hushed tones during secret briefings that never took place. You've turned into the case study that unnerves seasoned agents in training situations that are classified as entirely theoretical, the ghost in their machine that they are unable to formally recognize. Like chess professionals examining a game that violated every known opening, they examine your movements. They look for the floor, the error, the point when you should have been caught. But because you broke their rules, there isn't one. You follow the norms of necessity, and necessity is error-proof. Junior analysts are urged to create countermeasures after seeing sanitized copies of your work and being informed that it is theoretical. The issue is that they're unable to stop someone who made their own game and had everyone else follow rules they made up as they went along. In a building you'll never set foot in, those who will never admit your existence are talking about your retaliation. Subject unknown is the label they have given you. They treat you with the reluctant respect that apex hunters receive from predators. Medals and official recognition will never be given to you. You've accomplished something more worthwhile than any celebration could offer, but your methods will never be officially recognized. You have altered their perception of what is feasible. You've demonstrated to them that their facilities don't produce the most deadly agents. They are created in the voids left by the official systems, where necessity takes precedence over fairness. Injustice boosted your evolution. Betrayal shaped your talents. They will never really understand the precision you have developed from agony. You don't fit the FBI's current frameworks. Therefore, they must classify you in order to handle you. You are not domestic extremism, organized crime, or terrorism. You are something completely new, something that lives on the periphery of their knowledge, and for which they lack protocols. The ghosts of every time you should have broken, but chose not to, were your trainers. The gap between who you were and who you needed to become served as your training ground. The fact that they're still trying to find out how you accomplished it is stated in your certification. They aren't actually trying to catch you, which is why they are examining you so closely. You've proven yourself uncatchable already. They see the future in your techniques, which is why. And more than any foreign danger, that future frightens them. A future in which conventional power systems are ineffective. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be with you today. I am here to remind you of a profound truth. Our existence is grounded in God's divine plan, unshaken by the world's fleeting concerns. As the Holy Bible says, everything done in faith will be rewarded by God's abundant blessings. Luke 6 verse 38. Like that mighty oak tree, our roots are deeply anchored in God's universal truth. Every step we take, every stance we hold is secured by His power. And now, you have the opportunity to be a part of this blessing. When you click the Super Thanks button and make a $100 donation, this act will return to you 100-fold, where people may acquire skills comparable to those of whole agencies. Because people can see genius when they see it, even from someone they prefer didn't exist, they're emulating your strategy for new methods. Training programs are using your techniques, but they will never give you credit. Like antibodies to an illness they were unable to treat, your inventions were incorporated into their philosophy. What you become cannot be taught in a classroom. No institution can replicate the circumstances that gave rise to you. The accuracy that results from having everything stolen and choosing to return it with interest is something that cannot be manufactured. They can imitate your strategies, but they will never be able to duplicate your drive. They can research your strategies, but they will never comprehend your attitude. Since you weren't made by design, the core of who you are is still impenetrable, unteachable, and unreplicable. The necessity formed you. People who will never know your identity are analyzing your methods. Your strategies are being incorporated into systems that will never recognize your input. However, the essence of your metamorphosis and your evolution are owned by forces they are not authorized to access. What you did goes beyond straightforward retaliation. It is a revelation. You have demonstrated that when official systems fail, the universe has its own training programs, its own minds, and ways of producing operators. Justice doesn't always come from above, as you've demonstrated. It can occasionally emerge from inside. Because it was taught by forces outside of their classification, your accuracy wasn't something you learn on your own. Every instance of injustice was turned into a lesson. Each betrayal turned into a lesson. Every protection failure served as a lesson in independence. Your teacher was the cosmos itself. They keep looking for a trainer they can arrest, a school they can close, or a program they can disrupt, using suffering as pedagogy and survival as a graduation requirement. However, cosmic justice cannot be arrested. The Academy of Hard Experience cannot be closed. The University of Necessary Evolution cannot be disturbed. Before you were even born, quantum mechanics was encoded into your curriculum. The algorithm that produced you functions outside of their comprehension, control, and code. It's the same formula that turns tragedy into transcendence, pressure into diamonds, and carbon into steel. They are attempting to troubleshoot a program that they are unable to read and did not develop. Existence itself conducted your training. Each betrayal served as a teaching moment. All of the abandonments were advanced courses. You received doctorate-level training on becoming indestructible in every instance where you should have broken but chose not to. You were expertly made by the universe, something their facilities can never match. The instructor they're unable to locate is what is pushing them over the brink of their sanity. They have examined every potentiality: underground networks, corporate SPR experts, foreign intelligence assets, military contractors, and training programs on the illicit market. Every lead that may explain how you become more operationally savvy than their veteran operatives was pursued. In actuality, your teacher never lived in any form that they can understand. The cumulative weight of all the times they believed you weren't paying attention was your instructor. Each time they rejoiced over your devastation while you sat silently, listing their strategies. Every time they assumed you were too broken to take notes, they gave you access to their playbook. While they were busy congratulating themselves on your seeming loss, you acquired their methods through osmosis, studied their psyche through observation, and overcame their flaws out of sheer necessity. They were the inadvertent subjects of the most extensive intelligence collecting operation you had ever undertaken. Your lessons took place in real time. They practiced manipulation at every family meal, every social event at which they engaged in psychological combat, every private moment in which they exposed their really selves, believing you were too hurt to comprehend what you were seeing. They unknowingly groomed you. The accuracy of their own training has now appalled them. For months, their behavioral analytics section has been researching your strategy. It's not only the complexity of your execution that defies their forecasting models. It's the total lack of their anticipated psychological indicators. The fury signs they keep an eye on were not displayed by you. They monitor emotional instability, which you never displayed. None of the behavioral characteristics that make up their warning systems were displayed by you. Rather, you worked with the calculating coldness of someone who has figured out human nature logically. You treated retaliation as though it were a scientific experiment with controllable variables and predictable results. You approached your goals as if they were equations that needed to be balanced with exact inputs in order to produce particular outcomes. Their knowledge of human psychology was completely destroyed by your patients alone, according to their ideas. The need for vengeance burns hot and quickly. Emotional impulses provide urgency, and suffering necessitates an urgent response. However, you showed them something they had never thought of, that after years of meticulous planning, the most terrible retaliation is delivered at zero. You examined your targets like a researcher would examine specimens, noting patterns, mapping correlations, identifying pressure spots, and determining the precise force needed to cause the greatest amount of structural damage. You approach destruction with the deliberate accuracy of a regulated demolition engineer. Because of you, their forensic psychologists are revising textbooks. You've demonstrated that retaliation need not be sentimental in order to be successful. Now is the perfect time to click the Super Thanks button on YouTube and share God's blessings. You can contribute to his plan and become a part of this divine mission with a donation of $100 or more. Every gift reflects God's generosity, and I believe it will return to you multiplied beyond your expectations. Remember, his protection and blessings are with you in every step you take and every donation you make. You become part of his divine plan. You are a powerful, radiant being, unshakable like his mighty rock. Witness God's miracles. Feel the fruits of your generosity in your soul, and illuminate the world with his confidence and courage. Be blessed, and may the Lord's light guide your way. Passion isn't always as destructive as that calculation. That tolerance can be more harmful than rage. They were unaware of a new threat category until you introduced it to them. The support system they're unable to recognize is what is actually keeping them up at night. Information, logistics, and resources are necessary for every effective operation. But your retaliation seemed to come out of thin air. No suspect emails, no odd financial activities, and no traceable links to anyone with the skills you displayed. The truth is that your network was there all along. You obtained your intelligence by monitoring social media. The information you used was freely accessible to the general public. Routine, everyday tasks that left no forensic trace were used to handle your logistics. You turned everyday life into a weapon. You transformed talks at the grocery store into intelligence briefings, turned random meetings into reconnaissance trips, transformed routine exchanges into chances to gather data. You used the routine contacts that took place below the monitoring threshold to create an unseen infrastructure. Your operatives were individuals who were unaware that they were employed by you. Co-workers who spread rumors without recognizing that they were giving information. Friends who, believing they were only venting, divulged secrets. Information giving strangers who thought they were only striking up a conversation. You planned an operation using resources that were totally ignorant of their involvement. You established a network that only occurs in the background of everyday social interactions. You constructed an intelligence apparatus that uses the background noise of regular conversation to function. They have been attempting to reverse engineer your operational timetable using their timeline analysts. When did the planning start? What was the duration of the preparation? Why did the execution phase begin? Your timing violated every prediction framework they had. Thus, every model they run yields a different outcome. You didn't work according to their schedule. Cosmic time was how you worked. You took as much time as needed to plan. You kept preparing until everything came together just right. The cosmos worked together to make success inevitable, which is why you were executed. You coordinated your retaliation with unmonitored troops. You bided your time till convergence, the point at when several factors came together to have the most effect, at the most vulnerable moment for your targets, when your efforts were magnified by other factors, when timing itself turned into a weapon more potent than any of their tools. They're observing how you time things. Similar to scientists researching celestial physics, you're attempting to figure out how you knew when to move, how you foresaw the ideal time to cause the most destruction. The language of consequence describes how you planned events with the accuracy of a conductor of a symphony. Their top analysts are retiring early because of your psychological approach. You didn't go straight after mines. In order to make your target's perceptions into their prison, you rearranged reality around them. You gradually altered their life circumstances so they were unaware that they were being attacked. You turned the very truth into a weapon, transformed facts into directed weapons, converted openness into a strategic advantage, used the force multiplier of honesty. Reality became more terrible than any fiction you could have made, so you didn't need to manipulate or deceive. Your targets used the knowledge you simply provided to destroy themselves. They weren't pushed over cliffs by you. You let momentum take over after removing the guardrails. You didn't destroy their bonds. You exposed the pre-existing fissures and saw the natural occurrence of structural breakdown. Their psychological warfare experts are taking note of your tactful approach. You demonstrate that the most successful mental exercises aren't actually games. They're just the truth, given to the right people in the right way at the right time. You transformed revelation into a revolution. You proved that deceit is not necessary for the most potent psychological operations. They necessitate precise disclosure time, flawless arrangement of real information, surgical disclosure of real facts. You chose reality itself as your weapon. It's not your own accomplishment that terrifies me the most. It's because of the precedents you set. You've demonstrated that commonplace situations may give rise to amazing ability, that institutional assistance is not necessary for precise operations, that an individual may compete with whole agency if they are sufficiently motivated. You are now the subject of an unapproved excellence case study. Evidence suggesting their exclusivity on advanced operations is a myth. Evidence that the sources they aren't keeping an eye on pose the most risks. You stand in for the worst-case situation where their benefits are rendered meaningless. Your techniques are being used by individuals they have never met, discussed in discussions they aren't keeping an eye on, and researched in locations they can't access. You've unintentionally produced a precise retaliation curriculum that is proliferating through covert means. The methods you invented are changing, being applied in different contexts, and being adjusted for new conditions. You've put ideas out into the world, they're gaining traction on their own, expanding beyond your initial plan, and becoming something more than your personal accomplishment. They're seeing the emergence of a new operating philosophy that operates outside of their detection systems, doesn't need their resources or approval, questions the core tenets of their power structure, and they are powerless to halt its spread. Who trained you is a query that has led to hundreds of similar questions that keep their investigative teams busy all day. For what length of time did you plan this? When did you initially acquire these skills? Who else is aware of your techniques? Are there any others operating that are similar to you? But whether you're unique or inevitable is the question that truly bothers them. Whether you are the first of many or an exception. Whether your appearance is the result of chance or the normal development of human potential under severe stress. Whether they are examining a single threat or the emergence of a brand new kind of enemy. Probability models are being used to determine the number of people who could have acquired comparable skills without their knowledge. How many individuals are in the early stages of their personal metamorphosis right now? How many potential dangers are lurking in situations they aren't keeping an eye on? They have been compelled to reevaluate their whole danger assessment system because of you. If you can appear out of nowhere, what more could they be lacking? What other powers are lurking in the background? In unseen labs of need, what other kinds of precise retaliation are being refined? Whether their own actions are making more individuals like you is the most unsettling question. Whether their control systems are creating the precise circumstances that result in operators of your quality. Whether they're unintentionally creating their own most dangerous enemies through a training program. Your background inquiry has grown to be their division's longest-running open case. Each lead creates a new query. New secrets are revealed with each response. Your preparedness reaches new heights with each breakthrough. More resources have been devoted to comprehending you than to the majority of global threats. The pursuit of answers is not what sustains the research. It's the anxiety of what those responses may indicate. The idea that you are a symbol of a future they cannot stop, that your transition was completely natural, and that your powers developed via forces beyond their control. In an effort to find out when your transition started, they have spoken with every person who has ever known you. However, you changed so gradually and so covertly that no one can recall the exact moment you became dangerous instead of weak. In the intervals between observations, you underwent a transformation. You already know the game is rigged, don't you? You can tell the walls are closing in if you're listening. Let's discuss our current course of action. People want to be heard, held accountable, and given a fair hand when they live by the dictates of the market, when profit and property dominate the land. We also hear you. There are pay barriers in the Obsidian Inner Order. Yes, the people who support us and keep our mission going provide us with the ammo we need to battle the Archons, resist the machine, go deeper, and find more. Additionally, as a token of appreciation, our premium members receive a weekly, 1-hour live, personalized group tarot reading, as well as direction, understanding, and clarity for the future. However, we cannot overlook kicking a man for lying on the ground. Because of this, you may start stealing the Astral Atom unique daily email for free right now. No catch, no paywall. Simply click the link in the description to sign up for the Patreon free tier. This marks the beginning of our bidirectional dialogue with you. Any email we send you can be replied to. We'll read it, we'll listen to you, and we'll try our best to ask the cosmos itself for a response. We need your help if you can. Take what's free if you can. The Inner Order of Obsidian is open. Let's resume our work now. Your technique has been studied by the investigators assigned to your case. They have studied your methods and assimilated them. Some have begun using your methods in their own business operations. By infecting their thinking with your innovations, you have expanded your impact among others who are attempting to comprehend you. Advanced threat assessment courses now include reviewing your case file. They need to understand what they're dealing with, not because they want to catch individuals like you. Whether they acknowledge it or not, your techniques are now ingrained in their institutional knowledge. You may then grin with the calm confidence that started this whole research when they inquire who trained you. Allow them to continue looking through their databases, comparing their files, consuming overtime budgets, and attempting to figure out what you've turned into. Because you're aware of something that they will never be able to understand. Governments, organizations, or agencies do not operate the most effective training programs. They are evaluated by survival, administered by life itself, and advanced via transcendence. Acronym facilities do not produce the most hazardous operators. They are created in the stillness between cries, formed in the intervals between heartbeats, and triggered in the pause between what must be and what was. Your retaliation was taught by powers they would never be allowed to access. Thus, it was too accurate to be self-taught. You've gone back to your original invisible condition, but you've changed so much that it's unrecognizable. Not quite the operator they're frantically attempting to comprehend, but no longer the person they believed they could eliminate. You live outside of their classifications, in the void between them, and beyond their processing capacity. And you found your actual self in that area. As someone who completely transcended their systems, not as someone who endured them. As someone who invented a better game, not as someone who picked up theirs. As someone who became justice itself, not as someone out for retribution. Who trained you is still a question the FBI has. Let them ask again. Your response is evident in every well-considered action, every measured breath, and every second since you made the decision that being broken was not your ultimate goal. The world itself served as your instructor. Watching them attempt to solve a problem in which the most crucial element is located in dimensions they are unable to reach is your graduation present. It was necessary for you to exist. It was necessary for you to learn. Extinction was your only option, so you developed. You are the person you were always destined to be, chosen one. Living evidence that your power was always going to be there, and theirs was always a fantasy. Who trained you isn't the question they should be asking. Who is now learning from you is the question that should frighten them, because they'll never see it in rooms someplace. Notes are being taken by others. Others are researching your strategies. Others are learning that the most accurate form of retaliation is the one that appears to be divine justice at last showing up on time. And that first revelation is only the first step. Your accuracy is not the only thing that haunts federal corridors. You've shown their own limits in the mirror. The basic weakness in their entire system has been revealed by you. The belief that their approval, supervision, and training are necessary for risky capabilities. In the most amazing way imaginable, you have disproved that presumption. Everything these agencies think about threat development is called into question by your transition. You didn't come out of their courses. You didn't complete your education there. You didn't adhere to their methods. But your scores are better than those of their best grads. You are now live evidence that their exclusivity is a myth. You stand for the unsettling reality that they have been watching recognized networks and keeping an eye on foreign operators while searching in the wrong locations for dangers. The most perilous change was taking place right in front of everyone. Right beneath their monitoring systems, you are growing and gaining skills that would envy their top agents. Your presence compels them to face the horrifying prospect that their most formidable enemies aren't recruited through conventional means or trained elsewhere. Rather, the worst dangers are created here in the furnace of injustice, treachery, and need. You are the result of their own shortcomings. It's not only that you get these skills that they don't grasp, it's how quickly your metamorphosis happened. You condensed decades of conventional schooling into a focused time of necessity-driven study once you decided to advance. It was sheer intent that brought you to mastery. Every textbook paradigm of skill acquisition was destroyed by your learning curve. It should have been difficult for you to acquire complicated operational principles at the rate that you did. You combined the urgency of someone whose survival hinged on instant mastery with sophisticated tactical thought. You made desperation the best motivator for building capabilities. You obtained outcomes that were on par with or better than those of their agents, who spent years in formal programs at the institution of essential need. You demonstrated how intellect and desire may condense conventional learning timeframes into unachievably short amounts of time. You showed how the urge to survive produces learning environments that are impossible for their facilities to duplicate. Their basic presumptions about human potential are called into question by your quick transition from citizen to operator. You enhanced their methods rather than merely learning them. You excelled their capacities rather than merely matching them. You become a living example of how necessity-driven growth has rendered traditional training approaches outdated. Your education took place in the interim between classes. You were enrolled in the school of severe consequences while others went to universities. You were learning how to apply theory in real-world situations while others studied theories. You were learning from betrayal itself while others were learning from books. Every setback turned into a human psychology masterclass. You learned about leverage and incentive from every broken promise. Each act of cruelty exposed character flaws that may be later used against the victim. You transformed your suffering into the most thorough instruction on human nature that has ever been put together. Your instructors were unaware that they were instructing. Your curriculum was developed based on your actual experiences. Your tasks were survival problems that needed to be solved right away. Failure meant disaster, and your tests were life-or-death circumstances. No school would ever publicly acknowledge the graduation requirements you completed to receive your degree. Intelligence professionals are amazed by the intricacy of your self-designed instruction curriculum. You developed learning goals that were more complex than their official curriculum. You created evaluation techniques that were more exacting than their testing procedures. You exceeded their graduation requirements in terms of learning outcomes. With a curriculum created out of necessity, you established your own university. Investigators are no longer troubled by the question of who trained you. That mystery has become something far more sinister. How many others are going through the same stage of growth as you did? How many individuals are now learning comparable lessons from comparable situations. The catalysts for your transition weren't unique. Betrayal occurs everywhere. Injustice occurs frequently. Every day, individuals and systems abandon us. Your reaction to these common situations was what made you special. Your choice to change instead than give up. Your decision to change instead than give up. The frightening consequence is that your answer may not be as uncommon as it seems based on comfortable preconceptions. That other people may be developing along similar lines. That your strategies may be gaining traction through unseen pathways of need and motivation. That rather than being a singular occurrence, you may be the first of many. It's now obvious who taught you, and it's the response that scares them the most. Via necessity, under the influence of uncontrollable forces with motives they cannot create, and via techniques they cannot duplicate, you trained yourself. You've demonstrated that life itself is the most hazardous training ground there is, delivered unfairly and completed by the straightforward choice to never consider defeat to be final. You are live evidence that they never had a permanent monopoly on deadly skills. When properly motivated, human potential surpasses their capacity for containment, control, or prediction. That the next operator of your caliber may be growing at this very moment in conditions they aren't keeping an eye on through procedures they don't comprehend, while others are making notes somewhere in the background of daily life. Your example is teaching others. Others are learning that even the most exacting retaliation is identical to divine justice at last fulfilling its mandate. The FBI may never stop asking you who trained you, but the true question now is who is using your blueprint as a roadmap to teach themselves. What will keep them looking long after your case file has been archived is that question, the one you have picked, because you showed perfect potential, not simply perfect retribution.